Hey guys, what's up? It is your friendly neighborhood UberGoose here. I am back today with another Hearthstone video. I'm going to be talking about the new cards from the One Night in Karazhan expansion. I'm looking on Hearthstone at the full list of new cards. There are 45 new cards in the adventure, and it launches like in a week or something. August 11th is when the first wing will launch, and then they'll be uh, weekly. So let's get right into it. So Druid. The first card we have is Moonglade Portal. It's 6 mana spell, restore 6 health, summon a random 6 cost minion. I think this card is actually incredibly strong, one of the stronger portal cards. Um, you're paying 6 mana for a random 6 cost minion and the upside of getting 6 health. It turns out that 6 cost minions are really, really strong, and especially in Druid, where you're generally playing cards that like Thorison. You play Thorison generally if you're Druid, and Moonglade Portal could get Thorison. It's not obviously that high. There's a lot of 6 drops, but there's like Thorison, there's Sylvanas, there's Cairn. Like those are 3 really gigantic hits if you get them off of Moonglade Portal. And there's obviously a whole slew of other 6 drops that are also very strong to get off of it. And the restoring 6 health is awesome. Like, Druid is the deck that wants to restore 6 health along with summoning a minion. Like, that's one of the reasons that Ancient of Lore was in every Druid deck. The main reason, of course, was to draw 2 cards. But it also, if you didn't need to draw cards, you just needed to survive, like, 1 or 2 more turns to get off your Force of Nature Savage Roar combo, then you would play it to gain 5 life back, which 7 mana 5/5 body gain 5 life is just worse than Moonglade Portal. So in the situation where you're playing Ancient of Lore to gain 5 life, Moonglade Portal is very good in the same situation. Arguably just better. There's probably a few outcomes that are worse, but overall better. Next we have Menagerie Warden, 6 mana 5/5 Battlecry. Choose a friendly beast, summon a copy of it. Potentially strong. The problem is that you're not generally playing beasts with strong. You're generally playing beasts with battle cries, or they're just big, right? Like the beasts are almost entirely just big or have battle cries, and obviously copying a big minion with this guy is good, but I don't think it's good enough for constructed. If you want to make this guy work, you're going to be copying things with death rattles, which Druid does have Mounted Raptor, which would actually be pretty good to copy with this, but I don't think it's going to see play. Body is too small, it's too situational, and Beast Druid's not going to be a thing. However, next card, Enchanted Raven, 1 mana 2/2, Beast. That's it, no text. I think this card is phenomenal. I think this card is really, really strong. It accomplishes the exact same goal that 1 mana 2/1 often does, which is trade up for a 2-drop. However, it can also clean up small minions and doesn't just get pinged away by, Mage Hero Power or Druid Hero Power or Rogue Hero Power. It actually can be on the board, and they'll have to actually commit something to removing it, not just a Hero Power and 2 mana. So I think that's really good. And then obviously a lot of people have probably already talked about the fact that you can go turn 1 Enchanted Raven, and then if it survives, which it almost always will, turn 2 Marquis Charge, and then you have a 4 mana or a 1 mana 4/4, and you replaced Marquis Charge in your hand. So you basically don't lose anything to do it. You just have a 4/4 on turn 2, which is obviously insane. Moving on, we have the Hunter cards. Every class has 3 cards here. No class legendaries, all the legendaries are neutral. So we have Cat Trick, which is a 2 mana secret. After your opponent casts a spell, summon a 4/2 Panther with Stealth. I think this card is very, very viable. It's very good for a mid-range Hunter deck, almost assuredly. I mean, shit, mid-range Hunter decks we're putting in Stranglethorn Tiger. Like 5 mana 5/5 Stealth. And 3 mana 4/2 Stealth is a little bit worse, but 2 mana 4/2 Stealth is quite a bit better, especially if you put this going into your opponent's sweeper turn. Like, let's say, how about you're playing Arena, right? You're playing Arena, and it's your turn 6, and your opponent's a mage, and they went first, so you're going into their turn 7, and then you just play this as a secret. Well, what they're going to do is they're going to Flame Strike your 2 or 3 minions, and then you're going to be left with a 4/2 Stealth that will immediately be able to attack, right? And that's really strong. So I think this card is really good. Is it good enough for Constructed? Really hard to say. If Mad Scientist was still in the format, I would say 100% this is good enough for Constructed. But of course, in Standard, Mad Scientist rotated out earlier this year. But I do still think it's a very viable card. Potentially could see play in a mid-range Hunter deck. I think that's pretty much the only deck that wants to play it. But I think it could be very good in that deck. Next, we have Cloaked Huntress, 3 mana, 3/4. Your secrets cost 0. It's mediocre. It could be cool if Hunter had more secrets. I guess they do have quite a few. But if Hunter had more secrets or more draw spells, I think this card could be okay. I mean, 3 mana, 3/4 stat line is totally viable. Like, that's a totally okay stat line. It's playable. But if that's the only thing that you're playing it for, that's not so good. You could easily have a really good tempo turn on turn 3 where you play Cloaked Huntress plus Freezing Trap plus Cat Trick, right? Like on turn 3, like that's insane tempo, right? But you are spending 3 cards to do that. You know, that is 3 cards you're using on turn 3, and one of them, Freezing Trap, is I'm going to assume that it's just being used for tempo and nothing else, because you're not really trapping a very big target on turn 3, but it would protect the Cloaked Huntress, and potentially you'd be left with a 4/2 and a 3/4, right? Which is strong, but I don't think it's good enough. Next we have Kindly Grandmother. This card was spoiled a few days ago. 2 mana, 1/1 Beast, Death Rattle, summon a 3/2 Big Bad Wolf. I believe the Big Bad Wolf is also a beast. This card is sick. Everybody has been correctly rating this card as very powerful. Hunters, even face hunters, have been using Haunted Creeper, or were using Haunted Creeper since it came out until it rotated out for Standard. And this is just Haunted Creeper. Like, that's all this card is it's Haunted Creeper, except better. The only downside is that instead of getting 2 bodies on the Death Rattle, you get 1, and instead of it being a 1/2 on the front side, it's a 1/1. But the fact of the matter is that post Death Rattle, it's still a beast, and also 3 attack is better than a pair of 1/1s. A 3/2 is often better than a pair of 1/1s. Not always, but often. And the fact that it's a beast is obviously very strong in Hunter. The fact that both sides are beasts is very strong in Hunter. So I do think this card is very powerful. It's really hard to figure out where you want to play it. Midrange Hunter does have a problem of not having the greatest 2-drops. I think you probably just straight up replace Huge Toad in the midrange Hunter deck. You just put Kindly Grandmother in instead. That's almost certainly what people are going to do, because Huge Toad is a 2 mana 3/2 Death Rattle, just deal a random 1 damage somewhere, right? And this kind of fits a similar niche, similar stats. The difference is that it's just pretty much better. I mean, they don't want to kill the front side, which means that you have a Beast Enabler, and then if they kill the front side and don't kill the back side, you still have a Beast Enabler. And there's really not a card in Midrange Hunter that does that, aside from Savannah Highmane. But that's obviously a 6-drop, and normally that might be a little bit too late for your kill commands. But anyway, moving on. We have mage cards. We start with Babbling Book, 1 mana, 1/1. Battle Cry, add a random mage spell to your hand. I mean, you're really not going to like playing this card. There's a rogue card that actually has a similar effect, but I think is actually very powerful. I don't think this one's very powerful, because I think, God, who was it that said it? I think it was Firebat. I watched Firebat talk about this card. And it's like, why would you play this over a mage spell? Right? The only reason that you would do it is if you're aiming to get 3 of any given mage spell, or get 2 of a mage spell in the case that you're Reno. And in Reno, I think you could maybe fit 1 Babbling Book in, but that's really ambitious, I think. Especially because there's things like Shatter, which is just dead. Mirror Image, which is generally not the strongest. Arcane Missiles, which would be just dead if you're not Tempo Mage. There's too many mediocre mage spells to get from Babbling Book. The reason that Kabbalah's Tome is actually good, not only because it gives you 3 spells instead of 1, but The main reason is that those bad cards that I mentioned, when you actually get them in combination with two other random cards, they can be viable. For example, if you rolled Shatter Ice Lance out of your Kabbalist Tome, the Shatter is totally fine. You're gonna spend two cards, right? Almost like you're a warrior, and you're using like Cruel Taskmaster or Bloodtaker plus Execute to kill something. You're kind of doing the same thing, but it comes from just one card. With Babbling Book, if you get Shatter, you're dead in the water. It's completely blank. There's no way, there's no possibility of it being viable if you roll Shatter there. So Babbling Book, pretty mediocre. Firelance Portal is next. 7 mana spell, deal 5 damage, summon a random 5 cost minion. Incredible in Arena. Not going to see constructed play. It just costs too much for 5 damage. I mean, you can pay 4 mana and get a Fireball, and the 5 cost minion on turn 7 or later is not really going to be that good for you. It is nice that alongside your removal spell, you get a body. It is similar to Fire Elemental in that regard. It deals more damage than Fire Elemental. The body is generally comparable to Fire Elemental, but it does cost 1 more mana. But it is a spell, which might actually be relevant, with one specific card coming up much, much later. Next, though, we have Medivh's Valet. It's a 2 mana 2/3. Battlecry, if you control a secret, deal 3 damage. This card is bonkers, I think. I think this card is really, really strong, as long as your deck works around it. I think people are going to jam this into Freeze Mage and not even think twice about it, because Freeze Mage, you're going to have secrets up. You're going to put up your Ice Block at some point relatively early into the game, and then you can just use this as a Frostbolt, an extra Frostbolt plus a 2/3 body. I think this card is very, very strong in Freeze Mage. I think it's potentially strong in a new Mage archetype that maybe revolves around secrets. There are quite a few Mage cards that do revolve around secrets, but none of them have really been powerful enough. Medivh's Valet may be powerful enough. The fact that comparing, to Fire Elemental, like I did with Firelance Portal, this guy's bananas, right? He does the same damage as Fire Ellie, but he's on 2 mana body. Like, 2 mana, 2/3 stats are good for 2 mana, and you're paying 2 mana to Frostbolt something and leave a 2/3 body, That's really good. So I think Medivh's Valet is a card to definitely keep on your radar. Try out in Freeze Mage and see if it works. It might just be that in Freeze Mage it's actually not good enough, but I hope it's good enough because I think this card is sweet. Next we have Paladin cards. We have Ivory Knight, 6 mana 4/4 Battlecry, discover a spell, restore health to your hero equal to its cost. Mediocre card. 4/4 body is bad for a 6-drop. I mean, it's just bad. The Battlecry to discover a spell is potentially good. Problem is that Paladin of all classes has quite a few dead spells. I mean, if you could get just the discover of 3 secrets, right? You get Repentance, Eye for an Eye, and Noble Sack or Competitive Spirit, because Noble Sack is actually pretty strong, I think. But if you just get 3 secrets that are not very good contextually, then you're kind of shit out of luck. You're paying 6 mana for a 4/4 body that gains you 1 life, right? If you're gonna play that card, you might as well play the oh god, what is it? It's Priestess of Elune, right? It's like a 6 mana, like 6/5 or something that restores 4 health. I don't even remember its stats. I played it in Arena one time and was like, man, even in Arena, this is garbage. But yeah, Ivory Knight there's too many ways that it can be bad. There are ways where it can be super swingy and incredible. For example, if you hit Lay on Hands, you're gaining 8 life, and then you can gain 8 life again, right? And as well as draw 3 cards. Like, there's very swingy potential with Ivory Knight, but I think on average it's probably going to be a little bit mediocre. So I don't think you're going to put it in your deck pretty much ever. Next card, though, we have Silver Moon Portal. 4 mana spell. Give a minion +2/+2. Summon a random 2-cost minion. I think this card is super sweet. I don't think it's good. I think it's good in Arena, but I think in Constructed, you're not getting enough stats out of the mana cost that you're putting into it. You are getting more than Blessing of Kings on average, because 2-drop minions generally have about 5 stats, which will total, you'll have 9 stats instead of the 8 from Blessing of Kings on average. But The problem is that you're putting four of those stats. You're putting +2/+2 on one minion, right? And then you get just a random 2-drop. And maybe the random 2-drop is bad. Maybe it has bad stats. Maybe it's a novice engineer, right? Maybe it's a 1/1. And then it's a lot less stats than you're really looking for. And not only that, but the reason Blessing of Kings is so strong is because you're just putting this enormous amount of stats on one minion and makes it really hard for people to trade into it. +2/+2 is not enough, for 4 mana. I mean, I play this, right, and I buff my, shielded mini-bot, obviously not in standard, but I buff my 2-drop, whatever, +2/+2, now let's say it's a 4/4, and then the opponent just kills it, right? 4/4 versus 6/6, as you can maybe see, is it's night and day, Like maybe you get the extra copy or the extra minion, and maybe that's okay, but I don't think it's going to be playable. Next we have Nightbane Templar, though. This card is cool as heck. 3 mana, 2/3. Battlecry. If you're holding a dragon, summon 2 1/1 whelps, which I believe are dragons. I'm not sure if they have the tokens here on Hearthstone. I'll have to check near the end, but 3 mana, 2/3. Body is not the best, but as far as 3-drops go, it's about par for the course. 3-drops tend to have bad stats unless they have unless they don't have a strong effect, in which case they'll have okay stats. Like the Hunter one, right? Like it's a 3 mana, 3/4. This is kind of what you want for a strong statted 3-drop. 3 mana, 2/3. It's kind of what you want for a weak statted 3-drop with a good ability, and this ability I think is quite strong because it does give you a total of 9 stats for 3 mana, which is better. I mean, if you just compare, this is 7 stats for 3. And not only that, but getting dragons actually might be good. Not only do I think that Dragon Paladin can be super viable now because of a card later, but I think that just getting 2 1/1 dragons is actually quite good also because of later cards. Keep an eye out for this card for sure. I do think Dragon Paladin's coming back, and I do think Nightbane Templar is going to be in it. Next we have the Priest cards. Let's just skip the Priest cards. No. Onyx Bishop, 5 mana, 3/4. Battlecry, you resurrect. It's dog shit. Priest of the Feast, 4 mana, 3/6. Whenever you cast a spell, restore 3 health to your hero. It's dog shit. Purify, 2 mana spell, silence a friendly minion, draw a card. Slightly less dog shit than the previous 2. Problem is, their stat lines, Priest of the Feast stat line is good. Onyx Bishop's is bad. Both effects are incredibly mediocre. And especially Onyx Bishop, it just doesn't make sense to have Resurrect on a minion body. The whole point of Resurrect is that you play specific minions in your deck to make Resurrect consistent and always get something super good. Problem with Onyx Bishop is that if you're running 2 in your deck and the first one dies, now your second Onyx Bishop may just give you an Onyx Bishop, which is just a poorly statted minion. Like you can get more stats with the injured Blade Master, right? Like he's a 4/7 off of Resurrect. He's a really good card to use with Resurrect. But Onyx Bishop, low stat body with the Battlecry that could potentially summon, the first one. It's just not good. Priest of the Feast, 4 mana, 3/6 is fine stats. The effect is super mediocre. You're not going to be caring about gaining 3 health whenever you cast a spell. If you're a priest and you're casting spells anyway, you're effectively gaining health anyway. Double dipping on that is not insanely viable. If there was a way to heal past 30 health, I think it would be probably too strong with this effect, because you would just slam him, cast a dozen spells or however many spells you have in your hand, and then you would just go up to 45 or something like that, right? And in that situation, sure, he'd be good. But the problem is with 30 health as your cap, 10 spells from you being dead is what it would take. That's the most value you can get out of him. So it's not really scalable like you'd hope. Purify, it can be okay sometimes. In edge cases, you do want to silence your minions, like if they're frozen, for example, is a very common occurrence, or common way to unfreeze them is silencing them. Drawing a card makes it fine. 2 mana draw a card, if that was just a card Priest had, it wouldn't be the worst. You probably wouldn't play it, and as such, you're probably not going to play Purify. Rogue, though, let's get some good shit, Ethereal Peddler, 5 mana, 5/6. That is awesome stats. Battlecry, reduce the cost of cards in your hand from other classes by 2. Very strong effect, potentially. As long as you build your deck around it, you run 2 Burgles, you run 2 Hucksters, and you run 2 Swashburglars, which I'll talk about in a minute. You get all these effects that take cards from the other class, and, if you hit really expensive ones, you get to do some pretty good stuff. The only downside is that Ethereal Peddler will not reduce the cost of rogue cards. If you're facing a rogue, this card is just a 5-mana 5/6, which probably won't cut it in the mirror. However, there is the bonus of if you're playing Renounced Darkness and you roll into Rogue, then Ethereal Peddler will actually reduce the cost of all the cards in your hand by 2, as long as they're not neutral cards. And that's pretty sweet, especially because it'll be a 4-mana 5/6 in that instance. So I think cool card, probably not the strongest, and probably won't see constructed play, but it could definitely, you could make a fun deck. And I imagine in Arena it's good just because, it's Pit Fighter stats, which is already good enough. And then the bonus effect is fine for Arena. Deadly Fork, 3-mana 3/2, Death Rattle. Add a 3/2 weapon to your hand. Meh. It's not that strong. I really do think, I also don't know how much the weapon costs. Hopefully that'll be later. But I think that Blizzard needs to give Rogue actually strong weapons. 3/2 weapon is not a thing Rogue gives a shit about, especially when it's delayed to a point where you have to play a 3-drop minion, then that has to die, then you can play your weapon, right? If you just gave Rogue Fiery War Axe, it would be good. It would be a card that Rogue would play, right? And the problem is that they don't give Rogue Fiery War Axe. I don't think it would be as insane as some people might think. Because the thing is, Rogue generally wants high durability rather than high attack on their weapons. So 2 durability makes it fine. I don't know. It's just not that good. It's not exciting. It's not that good. Swashburglar, though. 1-mana 1/1 Battlecry. Add a random class card to your hand from your opponent's class. Not only is it a pirate, not only is it a 1-drop, but it actually gives you a stolen card, which I think is sweet. It is... I mean, if you compare this to Undercity Huckster, they're incredibly similar cards, except Swashburglars is on Battlecry instead of Death Rattle, and they're both not the best stat lines for their mana cost, but Swashburglar is also a pirate, which could potentially be relevant. Probably won't be, but it could be. I think Swashburglar is really, really cool, though. I like it a lot. I like the idea of you drawing a card from your opponent's class, something that you don't have in your deck, something you can't have in your deck in most cases. Off of playing a minion. I think it's just cool. I think it's a really cool effect. I think it could totally be good. You just need to find the right deck. And I don't think Miracle Rogue is the right deck. And based on the cards I've seen so far, I don't know if there really is another viable archetype, unfortunately. But if there is, I hope it involves Swashburglar. Shaman, Maelstrom Portal, 2-mana, deal 1 damage to all enemy minions. Summon a random 1-cost minion. 2-mana, deal 1 damage to all enemy minions is fine. I mean, this is just better than Arcane Explosion. But it is in a different class. So maybe it's okay. It's not, when you look at this compared to Lightning Storm, it's night and day. And the problem is that if you do want an effect that clears a bunch of minions, you're probably just going to play Lightning Storm and not worry about this card, which deals less damage, although costs less mana, and also just summons a random 1-drop. If it summoned a random 2-drop, like if this cost 1 more mana, maybe... I'm not sure how you'd balance it to make it summon a 2-drop. Summoning a 1-drop is so bad, though. It really is just not good. Wicked Witch Doctor, though. 4-mana 3/4. When you cast a spell, you summon a random basic totem. Could be okay. I don't think it will be, but it definitely could be. If you have a Shaman deck that does play like just a dickload of ass spells, right, and you can just dump them, then it can be pretty good. As far as I understand, it is just a random basic totem, so if you already have Stoneclaw, which is the 0/2 taunt, you could get another Stoneclaw on a spellcast, and then even another Stoneclaw on a spellcast, if you're incredibly unlucky and all you want is spell damage. But, if it costs 3 mana, I think it might see play. At 4, it's probably just too expensive for too small of an effect. Spirit Claws, on the other hand, 1 mana, 1/3 weapon, has +2 attack while you have spell damage. I think this card is actually really, really good. You do need to kind of tailor your deck around it, at least a little bit, because just playing this card in your deck and just going for the 1/4 roll every time that you want to attack with a 3 attack weapon to try and get your Wrath of Air totem, it's not good. I mean, it could work, but it's not good. Although it is worth noting that a 1 mana 1/3 weapon might actually be okay in the current state of the game, especially against something like Zoo, where they're pretty much all 1 health minions, and killing them, even though you take a hit in doing so, is always better than not. So I'm not sure. I think it's a really cool card, and it just maybe needs just a little tiny nudge. I think Shaman may need just a little tiny nudge in the right direction to make it viable. Hell, it could even maybe be viable right now. Honestly, I don't know. It wouldn't be viable in the current top Shaman decks. You'd have to make a new archetype revolving around casting spells. And while you're at it, maybe you're playing Wicked Witch Doctor. Probably not, though. But if you're playing like a Mali Shaman, right? Malagos Shaman, or maybe even, not even Malagos. Maybe you just play, stuff like Kobolds, right? Maybe you just play a bunch of minions that give spell damage, and then you just launch spells at your opponent's head. I don't know. Maybe. I think it's a cool card, though. Warlock, we have Silverware Golem, 3 mana, 3/3. If you discard this minion, summon it. I think this card is bananas. I think it could potentially just be incredible in the current Zoo archetype. Like, I really don't think that you actually need to do anything. As long as you're playing 2 Soulfires and or a Doomguard or 2, this card is awesome. The fact that you just get a freebie 3/3 is so sick. And it also, I mean, the problem is that you do have to deal with a little bit of randomness, and that is worth noting. But there are definitely situations, if you're putting 2 of this in your deck, there could be early game situations where if you dump your hand real hard, you could just have 2 Silverware Golems and a Soulfire in your hand, and then you just play Soulfire and get a 3/3 along with it, right? Even though you have 3 cards in hand. It doesn't just have to be this card plus your discard effect as your only 2 cards in hand. And I mean, there are situations where you play Soulfire right now, and even include the discard, without having an empty hand, because you really need to Soulfire a specific minion right now. And in those situations, if Silverware Golem is in your hand, you have the 1 in 4, 1 in 3, however many cards you have in hand, chance to summon a 3/3 just along with it, And that's awesome. I think that's really, really good. Will it actually show up in Zoo? I think so. I think people are going to experiment with it, at least, for the first couple weeks. I think people are going to try and make it work, especially with this other card that we'll get to in a moment. Karazhan, I think this card is sweet. 1/1, a 2/2, and a 3/3, all for 5 mana. It's a spell, it summons a 1/1 candle, 2/2 broom, and 3/3 teapot. You're not going to play this in Zoo. Let me get that abundantly clear. But what you are going to do with this card, if you are playing it, is you're going to play it in a deck that is kind of like a Reno Lock. The problem with Reno Lock, at least that I've run into, I tried playing Reno Lock a couple times since Standard, and the problem I kept running into was the situation where I just didn't have enough to deal with early game. And 5 mana is not exactly early game, but the problem is that, you'll get to turn 5, turn 6, and you've already blown your Hellfire, and you're just not drawing into another sweeper. And how do you deal with the board? They just have a bunch of mediocre minions on board, but you can't do anything to them. You don't have a sweeper. And Karazhan kind of fills the role of being able to contest the board without just being fodder. It's not just like you're playing a 5 mana 6/6. A 5 mana 6/6 would be a lot worse against a deck that tries to flood the board, because they would just, if they're Zoo, they just PO 2 attack minion and kill it. But in this case, it's literally going to be trading for 3 minions almost always in that matchup. Is 5 mana too late? Potentially. But I do think that this card has potential. It might not be good now, but I do think it is the beginning to giving Cho'Gall Warlock enough cards. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes. And I'll comment on that briefly. Cho'Gall is mediocre because there's not enough proactive spells that you can play in Warlock. They're pretty much all reactive. They're removal, right? And Cho'Gall suffers because of it, because he's just a dude. You just play him, he's a dude. And if your opponent hasn't done anything, say they're Freeze Mage, he's nothing. He doesn't do anything, right? He's just a dude. But with this, you can kind of proactively build the board in a very potentially powerful way. I mean, getting Cho'Gall plus a 1/1, a 2/2, and a 3/3 could potentially be really good. So keep an eye out for that synergy. It could definitely work eventually. Malchezaar's Imp is a 1-mana 1/3 demon. Whenever you discard a card, draw a card. Sick. I'm assuming it works the way that you'd hope it would if you have Malchezaar's Imp and Silverware Golem gets discarded. I assume that both you summon Silverware Golem and also draw a card. And if that is the case, then I think that both of these cards could easily get slotted into Zoo. Easily. The thing is, 1-mana 1/3 demon, it's literally a Voidwalker, right? It just is. I mean, the difference is that it doesn't have taunt, but that matters very little a lot of the time. Like I would say most of the time that you're playing Zoo, you play Voidwalker just as a 1-mana 1/3. You know, the taunt is just kind of bonus, and I think Malchezaar's Imp can fill the same role in most cases while having this added bonus of making your Soul Fires not hurt you even nearly as bad as they did before. So I think both of those cards could easily go straight into Zoo, which I think is cool. I think they could potentially even shift Zoo in a way that you could maybe play something like Darkshire Librarian, who has the Battlecry of you discard a card, 2-mana 3/2 Battlecry discard a card, but Death Rattle you draw a card. If you have Malchezaar's Imp, you play it, Imp on 1, Librarian on 2, you discard a card, draw a card, right? And then when it dies, you draw a card anyway. So it essentially just gave you a free card. The only downside is that you lost one card in your hand at that moment, which then immediately got replaced. Like, the only way that matters is if, like, you get to fatigue, basically. So I think this card is really cool. Warrior, we have Unleash the Taunts, Protect the King, 3-mana spell for each enemy minion, summon a 1/1 pawn with Taunt. This card is sick. Everybody's going to say, oh, put it with Bolster, but who cares? I mean, just being able to play a board of 1/1s is really awesome, especially when they have Taunt. I mean, you could literally just, like, against Zoo, all you do is you just play Protect the King. Their board's gone. It's gone. I mean, it's not like Warrior already had a problem with Zoo. They didn't. It's just that, worst case scenario, Protect the King either pulls out, like, a sweeper effect of some sort from your opponent. Like, let's say your opponent's a Warrior. They just play Whirlwind, right? That's, like, worst case scenario. Or they also just kill all your taunts for free, but you gain life equal to all of their minions' attacks added together, essentially. I think this card is sick. You could play it with Bolster, in which case it would obviously be extra sick, but I don't think that you need to for it to actually be that good. Fool's Bane, 5-mana 3/4 weapon, unlimited attacks, but can't attack heroes. Unlimited attacks each turn, but it cannot attack heroes. It's pretty mediocre. I don't actually see what other people see in this card. The problem is that it's too late for a 3-attack weapon. The benefit, of course, is that you do pay 5 mana and then however much life it takes, and you can clear out 4 minions on turn 5, potentially. But it's just too late for a 3-attack weapon, honestly. It is. I mean, you're playing a 2-mana 3-attack weapon, in the same class. So I just don't see the benefit of Fool's Bane. The only benefit I could have seen was potentially if you could hit face, maybe have it have less base attack and it can hit face, because then you combo it with Heroic Strike and then you crunch them. But it's just not good. I don't know. It's just not good. It's dead against multiple decks, and it's bad against more, Like, it's only good probably against a very select few decks that I can't even think of right now, to be completely honest. It's bad against Zoo, because you're just going to use it to clear out a bunch of 1/1s, It's bad against like decks that don't play minions, right? Because they don't have things to hit. And it's bad against like mid-range hunter because you don't want to take 12, or you don't want to take what I guess it would be 16 to clear the front and back of a Savannah High main. That's just bad. That's terrible, right? So you just shouldn't play this card. Ironforge Portal, however, may be good. It's a 5 mana spell, gain 4 armor, summon a random 4-cost minion. I haven't actually looked at the list of 4 drops, but it is totally possible that there are enough good ones for this card to be viable. The gaining 4 armor is good. The 4 random 4-cost could be good. The 5 mana might be slightly too high for the effect, though. So, maybe not. It's obviously really good in Arena. I don't think anybody's going to argue that. Similar with Fool's Bane and Protect the King. These are all good Arena cards for Warrior. In terms of Constructed, I think the only one that probably will see play is Protect the King. And Ironforge Portal could, maybe with some weird new card that nobody knows about yet, like it doesn't exist yet, maybe it could be played, but probably not still. I think it is a really cool effect, though. I like all these Portal cards, even though they're random, and I generally hate randomness. I think they're not an insane amount of random. So next we have neutrals. We have the legendaries, beginning with Medivh, who's an 8-mana 7/7 Battlecry, equip ATS, which I guess I'll scroll down and see. There is ATS, and Big Bad Wolf is a 3/2. So ATS is a 3-mana 1/3 weapon that after you cast a spell, you summon a random minion of that cost and lose 1 durability. So essentially, he is an 8-mana 7/7 equip a summoning stone, right? And that's cool. Probably not good, but cool. Fun, for sure. You have the random effect, which is not so exciting. And the fact that you get him only on 8 mana is probably too late. 7/7 body, though, is totally reasonable. Cool card. I'm a little disappointed they blew ATS on that, to be honest with you, because I could have foreseen a really cool ATS card, but that's okay. I guess we won't get one. Curator, though, 7 mana 4/6 taunt, mech, Battlecry, draw a beast, dragon, and murloc from your deck. I'm gonna defer you guys. Go watch Firebat's talk about it. His review of Curator, because he thinks very highly of this card. I totally agree with him. I'm just going to truncate it here. If you build your deck in a way that helps him, you're always going to draw 2 cards with him, and then he's just a better Ancient of Lore, right? And then he also has Taunt. Like, it's just really good. Imagine comparing this to Druid of the Claw. You're paying 2 more mana to draw 2 specific cards in your deck. 1 beast, 1 dragon, generally. The beast generally being something like Stampeding Kodo, and the dragon being your big fat legendary dragon, that whichever one you want to play in your deck. Maybe Onyxia, who knows? Next, though, we have Prince Malchezaar, 5 mana 5/6 demon. When the game starts, add 5 extra legendary minions to your deck. They do follow deck building rules, unlike Golden Monkey, so you cannot get legendaries from other classes, and you cannot have duplicate legendaries. So basically, he's bad. You just dilute your deck. You put this guy in your deck, which already is taking up a slot, and then your deck gets diluted. The chance of you drawing other cards that you want to draw in your deck is lower every single turn. The legendaries could potentially be shit. It's too much randomness, and there's really not enough benefit at all. The best case scenario is you get 5 incredible legendaries that you only draw at the exact moment that you need to draw them, and they're super contextually good at the moment you draw them, and that's obviously unrealistic. You're living in magical Christmas land if you think that'll ever happen. Next we have Barnes, though. I fucking love this guy. 4 mana 3/4 Battlecry, summon a 1/1 copy of a random minion in your deck. I think he's awesome. First of all, I'm going to make a deck with him, and I'm going to call it Barnes & Noble, and nobody can stop me. But the main thing that I'm seeing is that you obviously want to put this in a deck that has a low amount of minions, or a deck with Death Rattle minions to get the most value out of your 1/1. The cool thing is, though, you play Barnes as a 4 mana 3/4 with a 1/1, and let's say that you hit Malagos, right? Let's say you're playing a Malagos deck, and you hit Malagos, and you don't quite have enough spells to kill your opponent, but you can get them relatively low. You launch off your spells, right? Malagos is still in your deck, right? So this is it's just strictly bonus, you know? You're just getting an extra 1/1 along with the 3/4 body at worst. There's no downside to Barnes. It doesn't exist, which is sweet. But I think you play Barnes in a Priest OTK deck, one that plays Prophet Velen as well as Malagos. Hence the Barnes and Noble with Prophet Velen, I guess. And I think that's definitely the best place you can do it, because I mean, then you just play him for 4 mana. You don't need Thorson Ticks to get your combo off, right? You just play Barnes, right? And then you can play like Embrace the Shadows, Flash Heal, Mind Blast, right? And then your opponent dies. Like, that's insane, right? That's really sick. And you can do that, like I said, I mean, you can do that without a Thorson Tick. That's 10 mana, right? You have 4 mana for Barnes, plus 2, that's 6 from Embrace the Shadow, Flash Heal, that's 8, and then Mind Blast is 10, right? So you can do that without a Thorson Tick, and you still have Velen and Malagos in your deck, you know? And you can hit Malagos or Velen, and it works the same, right? So I think Barnes is definitely going to be on everybody's radar once he comes out. I don't know which wing he's in, but whenever he comes out, he's going to be on everybody's radar, at least for a day. It'll be in everybody's deck, at least for a day. Moros is dog shit. I actually don't want to talk about Moros, and I'm upset about him. Arcane Giant is one of my more liked cards of this set. It's a 12 mana 8/8, so a giant. Costs 1 less for each spell you've cast this game. Hell yeah. There's so many decks that want to play a lot of spells to play Yogg-Saron. That's their payoff, right? And that's like their only payoff. I mean, you look at Yogg Druid, and what's their payoff outside of Yogg and for playing all of these spells? Oh, there really isn't one, you know? It's Yogg, and then you have other cards, right? But I think Arcane Giant can be part of that payoff. I mean, how many spells do you think you're casting by turn 5? Do you think you could cast 7 spells by turn 5 as Druid? I don't think that's an unreasonable thing to do when you have stuff like Raven Idols and Innervates. Is it the most likely? Nah, maybe not. But can you play Arcane Giant on or before turn 8 most games? Absolutely, yeah. No question. And in that situation, I think it's quite strong. And then you have the added potential of maybe just having 2 Arcane Giants in hand. You know, you get to super, super late game, and then you just drop a pair of 8/8s, for free each. Like, along with your Yogg or something. Who knows? You know? Like, there's so much potential for Arcane Giant, and I think he's actually a very potentially powerful giant. So, look out for this guy, for sure. Next we have Bookworm, 6 mana 3/6 dragon, Battlecry. If you're holding a dragon, you Shadow Word Pain something. An enemy minion specifically. I guess I should refer. You target a Shadow Word, you play Shadow Word Pain, okay? It's a 4 mana 3/6 body with just a Shadow Word Pain stapled to his horns, right? And that could be good. You don't want to put this in your deck, though. 6 mana 3/6 is too low of stats, and if you don't get the payoff, it's not very good. And there are certain decks where the payoff is non-existent. You really don't get a payoff. So, probably too weak of a stat line to be put in your deck, but there's another card we'll get to. You can kind of see it. It's down here. That actually makes me really like Bookworm existing as a card, but you're not going to put it in your deck 9 times out of 10. Moat Lurker, 6 mana 3/3, Battlecry, destroy a minion, Death Rattle, re-summon it. Hoo boy, this card is potentially really good. You can use this for so many ways, like in so many ways. The first thing I thought when I saw this was Fiend Hunter, a card from Magic the Gathering. It was a 3 mana, I think 1/3. Didn't have good stats. I mean, that's actually not terrible for Magic, but 3 mana like 1/3 or something like that. And when it enters the battlefield, you would exile a minion, which is a Magic thing. Essentially what this guy does, though. And then when Fiend Hunter dies, the guy comes back. And you can use it. In Magic, it's a little bit better of an effect because you're never really forced to block with Fiend Hunter or attack with Fiend Hunter. Like your enemy's creatures won't really interact with Fiend Hunter in any way. However, Moat Lurker will be able to get attacked. But it does have potential for just clearing a giant taunt. Like, let's say your opponent just played Ancient of War. I think this card is incredible. Because you just play this card. You clear their taunt, you crunch in with everything else you had on the board. When they do kill your 3/3, instead of getting a 5/10 taunt, they just get a 5/5. Right? So this card is potentially really strong for reasons like that. And then you also have the added bonus of, let's say, I don't know, you're doing something stupid, right? Like, let's say you built a really stupid idiot deck, and you're playing Savannah Highmane and Moat Lurker in the same deck, right? And then you play Savannah Highmane, and then you hit it into a guy that doesn't kill Highmane, right? Then you play Moat Lurker to kill your own Highmane, getting your 2/2s, but then when Moat Lurker dies, you get another Highmane, right? And that's pretty sick, You get to, you get to like triple dip on Death Rattles with this guy. So in like a N'Zoth deck especially, because you play N'Zoth, right? And then you get Moat Lurker back with N'Zoth. I don't know how that'll interact at all. It probably won't. It'll probably just be a 3/3 from N'Zoth. But the fact of the matter is, if you, let's say you did it with Highmane, right? Highmane, Moat Lurker, Highmane. Highmane dies, Moat Lurker dies, Highmane, or I guess Moat Lurker dies, then new Highmane dies, right? Then you play N'Zoth, then you have 2 Highmanes and a Moat Lurker off of just Highmane and Moat Lurker, And you already had the value of getting 2 Death Rattles from Highmanes. I don't know. It's just, it's literally those Russian dolls, right? If you use it with Death Rattles, which is really cool. And like I said, you can potentially do it to clear your opponent's, the way for your minions to crunch in. I think it's very versatile. 3/3 stats are really, really bad, but that's totally intentional, and I actually don't think it makes the card bad. It's just more situational than if it had better stats. Avian Watcher, 5 mana, 3/6. If you control a secret, gain +1/+1 and taunt. Holy shit. Am I right? Holy shit. Holy fucking shit, right? Oh my god. I don't know how to describe this card in any other way. So 5 mana, 4/7 taunt is pretty good, don't you think? Especially in Mage, let's say. I think it's really good. I mean, people were freaking out about Dark Arakoa, right? 6 mana, 5/7 taunt, even outside of Cthulhu decks, right? Avian Watcher is just like, hey, bro, I got you. I mean, like, even a 5 mana 3/6, even if you don't have a secret currently out, that's not even that bad. It's not good, but it's just you're paying 1 more mana for the same body than most 4-drops. Like, good 4-drops are like 3/6s, right? So you're paying 1 more mana for the potential upside of having a fucking 4/7 taunt. I think that's awesome. I think this card is really sweet. I just don't know where you fucking put it. It's probably the strongest card in the set that just doesn't have a home. It's just not good. I don't know. I mean, it's good in a secret-based deck, and like I said earlier, potentially there could be a secret-based deck with the Medivh's Valet, right? But without a secret-based deck, it just doesn't do anything. So you need a secret-based deck. And I'm just not certain that it could be viable and constructed. Menagerie Magician, though. 5 mana, 4/4. Battle Cry. Give a random friendly beast, dragon, and murloc +2/+2. I'm not 100% how this card works, but because of the and instead of or, I'm going to assume that this literally just is a 5 mana 10/10 stat line. As long as you have a beast, a dragon, and a murloc, which is like not even that hard to do. Even if you have 1, you're getting a 5 mana 4/4 along with +2/+2 on another minion, which is already much better than the Silver Moon Portal that Paladin gets. So I think this card is awesome. And if you hit 2 guys, it's just incredible. And if you hit 3, you probably just won the lottery. So congratulations, you. I really like these Menagerie cards. I think they're really, really sick. So I think this guy could potentially see quite a bit of play, even if just in a dragon deck, just to buff 1 dragon. Like, it is random, but if you build your deck right, you're just going to have 1 of each, right? You're not going to worry about having, like 10 10 dragons on the table, and it's like, I really hope this one hits. You know, obviously you can't have 10, you can only have 6 if you're playing Menagerie Magician. You understand. Arcanosmith is really bad. 4 mana, 3/2, bad stat line. Battlecry summon an 0/5 with Taunt. Bad effect. It's just not good. I don't really know any other way to say it. 0/5 Taunt is really not exciting at all. 3/2 for 4 is not exciting at all. And when you put them together, it's still not exciting at all. So, oops. Violet Illusionist is a 3 mana 4/3. During your turn, your hero is immune. Wait, okay, so I haven't seen this one yet. Huh? Woof. Okay, let me think about this card for a moment. Because that card, that seems sweet as hell. That actually seems so fucking sick. I mean, obviously, with weapon classes, it's very good. With Warlock, it's potentially very good. I do really adore the idea of playing Violet Illusionist into Pit Lord. Like, that's a really sweet curve. You know? I think it's a cool card. I don't know if you could actually really play it, but I kind of want to. The immune effect is very, very powerful in this game. Like, incredibly powerful. So, it just doesn't make sense that this card wouldn't see play in some way, because the immune effect is so powerful. I mean, I guess Melganis does not see play currently in Standard, and he has a similar effect, except it's on your turn and the opponent's, and he's just a gigantic monster. But he does cost a shitload of mana, while this doesn't, so not sure. It's cool, though. Zubat, 3 mana, 3/3 mech. Battlecry, give a random friendly beast, dragon, and Murloc +1/+1. Pretty much the same thing as the Menagerie Magician. Slightly better efficiency in terms of mana cost, stat line, and obviously it has a minion type. So if you're going to play Menagerie Magician, you're probably going to play Zubat first. Like, you're going to have this in your deck before you have Menagerie Magician in your deck. You're going to put 2 of these in and then think about the Magician. But pretty much everything I said about Magician goes for this guy as well. So there you go. Pantry Spider, or Panty Spider if you're some kind of freak. 3 mana 1/3 beast. Battlecry, summon a 1/3 spider. I'm assuming that's also a beast. Just It's kind of like an Echoing Ooze, but really not. just really not an Echoing Ooze. I mean, it's kind of like you're getting 2/6 stats for 3 mana with 2 beast tags, which doesn't sound bad. I mean, it sounds quite strong, to be honest with you. But I just don't think it has a good enough effect. It just doesn't have a boom, you know. When you're paying 3 mana, you want it to do something. You know, that's why 3/4s for 3 generally don't do much. Like, it's a pile of good stats, but if you don't have the big boom, the effect that occurs first, it's just Netherspite Historian. Love this card. I think it's the best designed card of the set, assuming... Have I seen these? Yeah. I think it's the best designed card of the set, bar none. I think the only thing even remotely close is Barnes, and I think this card is more elegantly designed than Barnes, for sure. So let me explain why I think that way. And also, my chair is so squeaky, I'm so sorry. 2 mana 1/3, Battlecry. If you're holding a dragon, discover a dragon. So, one issue that dragon decks other than Warrior have had is they don't have a strong enough 2-drop. The only exception is Priest, who has the Wormrest Agent, which is good. It's a good card, but you need more. Just having 1 2-drop in your Dragon Priest deck is not good enough. That's why Dragon Priests would run Museum Curator, because you'd have maybe a chance to get an actual dragon, specifically with Chillmaw. But most of the time it was just a 2-drop that had some number of stats and got you value. Netherspite Historian has better stats, gives you better value, and it fills the same role. So Museum Curator, peace out, dog. At least in Dragon Priest. I think this card slots directly into Dragon Paladin without you even thinking twice about it. This is the card that makes me think Bookworm is sweet, because discovering Bookworm off of this means that, I mean, when you play this, you get three options, right? And you can contextually choose one of them, right? You can go, oh shit, he's Zoo. He's gonna have a 3 attack or less minion by turn 6 no matter what I do. That's gonna be the case. I'll take this Bookworm, right? And then Bookworm can actually be good on turn 6, right? And if you're playing against Freeze Mage, you just don't take Bookworm if it's offered to you, right? Here's another sweet thing. In Dragon decks, you play Twilight Guardian, the 2/6 for 4. That is a dragon, and if you're holding a dragon, it gets +1 attack and taunt. So it's a 3/6 taunt for 4. You play that card, and a lot of the time, at least in my experience, if you don't play a lot of dragons, if you just play enough to enable stuff, you'll end up in situations where you can't play Twilight Guardian because it's your only dragon enabler. It's the only dragon that's in your hand, so if you play it, it's just a 2/6, and if you hold on to it, then you actually get more value because you continue to enable your other dragon effects. Netherspite Historian goes, yo, Twilight Guardian, you work hard. Let me just discover another dragon because I already have you in my hand, right? And that's awesome. You could even discover another Twilight Guardian. Who knows? You know, like, I think this card is so powerful, and there's a low enough number of dragons that exist that make this card that much better, that much more consistent. I love this card. I really, really like this card so much. So much. But I'm going to move on and talk about the Pompous Thespian, who's a 2-mana 3/2 with Taunt. It's just a sparring partner without the battle cry. Who cares? Arcane Anomaly, 1-mana 2/1. Whenever you cast a spell, give it +1 health. Who cares? Runic Egg, 1-mana 0/2, Death Rattle, draw a card. Who cares? My point is, these cards are shit. Everything is shit except for Barnes and Netherspite Historian, but those are both awesome. I mean, that's pretty much all I got, though. So that's every card in One Night in Karazhan. This took me about an hour for 45 cards. That ain't that bad. A little over a minute per card. That's totally all right. I do really like Netherspite Historian, and I am going to make Barnes and Noble a deck, and that's pretty much all I got. I mean, thanks for watching, guys. I am very excited for this set because it could definitely cause some shakeups in the metagame, especially because the cards Warrior got are not that good in the current Warrior archetypes, and I don't really think any of these neutrals are that good in any of the current Warrior archetypes. So that excites me because there will be less Warrior, although I will mention that I think it's ridiculous that people go, oh, Warrior makes up 20% of the metagame. That's too much. There's 9 classes, and it makes up, if there were 5. But Warrior has like 10 viable decks, right? So it's not really stale because there's so much variety within the class. But anyway, I digress. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please be, so kind to leave a like and maybe subscribe if you're not already subbed, and I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching.